Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
And as always, let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host and your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. On the Move the Chains call sheet today, the top 5 NFL franchises. You haven't seen me rank a lot of things on this show, and I do that purposely. But I want to break down the top 5 franchises that I think are in the NFL right now. And I want you to remember something. I said franchises. I didn't say teams. There's a very big distinction that you're going to have to understand here, and I'm going to break it down for you. In second down, I'm going to be answering questions via social media as always. Want to take time to talk about what we have coming up for the draft and what teams I think will be able to make the playoffs in 2025 that didn't make it this past season. And in my nonsense narrative, there's always this appetite for people to play quarterbacks that are drafted, especially in the first round, as early as possible, whether they're ready or not. And I'm going to tell you why having that mindset may be one of the greatest nonsense narratives ever. And last but not least, there's a division in the NFL that is loaded, and it has nothing to do with players. All that and more here on Move the Chains, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. All right, so people list things all the time. They list their top 5 running backs, their top 5 quarterbacks, their top 5 receivers, top 5 teams. All that's well and good. At some point throughout the season, I will give you my Rivers rankings as well. We're going to debut those for college and pro football as the next season approaches. But for right now in the offseason with Move the Chains, because there really is no offseason, I want to talk about the top 5 NFL franchises. And I want you to realize that franchises have much more to do with just teams winning and losing. We're talking about the infrastructure. We're talking about the ownership. We're talking about the GMs. We're talking about the ability to draft and develop. We're talking about the ability to acquire free agents that help your team. And we're talking about consistency. I always give you my knowledge and my thoughts and my reasoning behind the points that I make. And that's what we're going to do right here. So let's start here with the number 5 franchise in the NFL in my estimation. That's the Green Bay Packers. So I want you guys to realize something as we keep this up there. Romeo Doubs was a 4th-round pick. Christian Watson was a 2nd-round pick. Why am I bringing this up to you? Because these are 2 of the best receivers, 2 of the starter receivers for the Green Bay Packers. And do you remember when Aaron Rodgers was a starter for the Packers before he left and went to the Jets? There was this sentiment that the Packers were doing him a disservice because they never drafted him a 1st-round wide receiver. For some reason, people were so hung up on 1st-round wide receivers, but yet they got James Jones, they had Jordy Nelson, they had Greg Jennings, they had Randall Cobb, and all those guys at some point were either all-pros or Pro Bowlers. So remember, it's about value. It's not necessarily about when you draft somebody, it's about the value you get when you draft them. So if you're able to get value from the receiver position and make sure that you can get production from them like Aaron Rodgers did and like Jordan Love did, that's what the Packers have always done. And we've talked continuously about the succession plan, about drafting a quarterback when you don't need one, which is why Jordan Love was able to sit 3.5, 4 years, then become the starter, then get extended, and in all that, still lead his team to the playoffs his first 2 years as a starter. Those are the type of things that Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Green Bay Packers, and that organization live for. Remember, this is the only NFL team that is owned literally by the people. That the ownership group of the Packers are its fans. And they have a plan in place that they've been doing for the past 20 years, and it works. And for those of you who feel like only 1st-round picks matter, if you look on the defensive side of the ball at guys like Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, guys like Jair Alexander, they got those guys in the 1st round. And like I said this during the season. The Green Bay Packers defense has the ability to be like the Chiefs. And what I mean by that is transition from an offensive-minded scheme, an offensive-minded coach in Matt LaFleur, and that identity to the defense leading the way. The Packers, if healthy, and we don't even know what they're going to get in the draft in the next few weeks, they will be one of the best teams in the NFL, and they currently are the 5th best franchise in my estimation. All right, number 4 franchise in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens. Eric DeCosta is the GM. Before him, it was Ozzie Newsome. I want to remind everybody that Lamar Jackson was the last pick in the 1st round when he got drafted. And Baltimore traded back up to get him. So if you have somebody that's been a 2-time MVP, easily could have been a 3-time MVP, who's been a 3-time All-Pro, who was one of the only 2, in my estimation, or 3 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, would you say there was great value at the last pick in the 1st round? I'd say so. Now, this is an organization that also has understood where they needed to make changes. John Harbaugh. We talk about Mike Tomlin a lot, and we should. John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. He has a Super Bowl, I understand that, and that was the pre-Lamar Jackson era. He, like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, haven't been able to get over the hump of winning another Super Bowl other than what they did early in their career in terms of head coaching on the teams that they're on. But the Baltimore Ravens are not just always a playoff team, they're always a team in contention. They're always a team that has the eye of top-tier free agents in hand. This is a team that went out and traded for Roquan Smith from the Chicago Bears, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. This is a team that was able to draft Kyle Hamilton. This is a team that was able to re-sign Ronnie Stanley. This is a team that understands that they were able to take one of the transcendent athletes and quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson, build an offense around him, and then understand that we weren't in the best position to make him successful because he's growing as an NFL passer. Let's get him weapons like Rashad Bateman. Now they signed DeAndre Hopkins on a one-year deal and drafted a spark plug in Zay Flowers. Organizational culture is what you hear out of Baltimore. And I know aside of the Justin Tucker situation that's transpiring, if you don't know, we'll talk about that at a later time, you don't hear a lot of drama coming from Baltimore. That stability leads to the details and it leads to the development and the betterment of an organization. In my estimation, that's why Baltimore is my top 4 NFL franchise right now. All right, going to number 3. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll continue to say this about Tampa Bay. One of the most underrated franchises in the NFL. When they went out and got Tom Brady, all the focus was on Tom Brady. The focus wasn't on how Tampa Bay did in the draft. The focus wasn't there. The focus wasn't on how their defense helped lead them to the Super Bowl when they won it when Tom Brady was the quarterback. And when Tom Brady left Tampa Bay, the focus was no longer on Tampa Bay. Yet this is a team that's just won 4 straight NFC South titles, that are tied for 3rd in the NFL in terms of playoff wins over the past 5 or 6 years, and also have a Super Bowl and are one of the 2 teams to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid in the Super Bowl during this era of the Chiefs run. Tampa Bay consistently puts out a product. Jason Light, the GM there, and they understand what it is that they're doing. And the transition, this is what nobody talks about with the Bucs, guys. The transition from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles was seamless. In-house transition from defensive coordinator to head coach, where Todd Bowles was seen as a liability as a head coach with the Jets, is now one of the best, I think, head coaches, not just in the NFC, but in football with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team is underrated because they're not flashy. They no longer have Brady, but they continue to win. And they were able to solve their quarterback puzzle with Baker Mayfield, signing him to a 3-year deal a few years ago. And I think he will be the quarterback of the foreseeable future for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're my number 3 NFL franchise. The number 2 franchise, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Do I have to say that they drafted Carson Wentz? Had a bomb year his first year and then dealt with injuries. And then what did they do? They didn't sit there and say, well, we don't want to make Carson Wentz mad because we don't want to draft a quarterback. They went out and got Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. And because Carson Wentz couldn't perform any longer due to his injuries, they started Jalen Hurts. And all Jalen Hurts has done is win. I've consistently said, even before he won a Super Bowl, that he's one of the most overlooked quarterbacks in the NFL. This is the son of a coach, a guy who has won at a high level everywhere he's been. But I also want to remind you of this. Do you remember under Bill Belichick when the Patriots somehow always drafted Georgia players that came from, Alabama players that came from Nick Saban? Do you remember that? And how those players, the Dante Hightowers of the world and all those things, the Patriots were always better than everybody fundamentally. Well, isn't that what the Eagles are doing now with the Georgia Bulldogs? The Georgia defense, the young guns on Georgia, the Nolan Smith, the Jalen Carters, the Jordan Davises, right? That's exactly what they do. Nakobe Dean, add him to the list. They draft well, they draft young, they develop well, and they play young, and they get the job done. And oh, and by the way, they can go out and get a free agent running back who's one of the most transcendent backs in the history of the game and add them to this already built-in roster that they're developing from the inside out. The Philadelphia Eagles, in my estimation, are the 2nd best NFL franchise as we speak. And I think there's nothing to debate here. The Chiefs, to me, are the best franchise in the NFL. 3 of the past 6 Super Bowls have gone to the Chiefs. They've been in the Super Bowl, 5 of the last 6 years. They've won 7 straight AFC championships. This was a team that had the 27th pick in 2017 and moved up to number 10 to draft Patrick Mahomes. And I could say that he still is undervalued for that draft pick. There's usually not a top 10 pick that's undervalued. He has been. And he's one of the biggest reasons, along with them being able to switch identities and not even lose step and win 2 more titles without guys like Tyreek Hill, makes him the best franchise in the NFL as we speak. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be social media questions right here on Move the Chains. We'll be back right after this. Hey, welcome back into Move the Chains. Before we get to the social media questions, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the opportunity to host Move the Chains. It's a tremendous blessing that I'm in this situation. Secondly, I want to thank all the fans that subscribe to the YouTube channel, that watch on TikTok, that watch here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54. I sincerely thank you for supporting this show. And as always, man, shout out to the best production crew in the business. None of this is done without them. Nothing. Having said all that, you know what time it is. It's time for Second Down. All right, so let's take the social media as always, man. That people will never stop commenting on the NFL, and I love it. All right, it's the first question we have today. Will the Giants draft a quarterback with the third overall pick in the draft? Now, this is assuming that the Giants keep the third pick because we understand trades can happen for the draft, prior to the draft, and even the day of the draft. But let's assume that they keep the third pick. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback, but I'd be okay if they did. Now, we know they just signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal, presumably to be the backup based on the money. We don't know what will happen. And they also brought in Russell Wilson. I like both moves. They brought in two veterans that are competent quarterbacks that can win games for them. Now, a lot of people would say the Giants don't need to try to win games, which is another conversation for another day because I've never subscribed to the tanking type mentality. However, I think if you have somebody like Travis Hunter still there or Abdul Carter still there and you have those two quarterbacks, you got to try to make this team better. Like, this is a team that is void of talent, so you have to try to take the best available player. But if they were to draft Shedeur Sanders, number 3 overall presumably, or Jackson Dart, whomever they think is their best quarterback option that's left, they're drafting for the future. So I don't think it would necessarily be a bad idea like some people do. I just don't think they will do it because I think they need to try to get better in a hurry. And you do that by making sure that somebody's on the field, specifically an impact player on the defensive side of the football. All right, what's the next question that we have? What concerns do you have about Cam Ward? I'm going to tell you like this, guys. I'm a fan of Cam Ward. The biggest concern I have is that he's so good. And that might not make any sense to you. But I remember Caleb Williams when he was at USC. He can make every throw. He can do anything athletically. And I said the reason I thought Jayden Daniels was better was because Jayden Daniels valued the football a little bit more. He didn't try to make every play even though he could. But Caleb Williams tried to make every play, and I think it got him in trouble his last year at SC, and it got him in the predicament where he got sacked 68 times with the Bears as a rookie. The same thing about Cam Ward. If you've seen Cam Ward play, whatever off-platform throws sidearm, he could probably throw the ball underhanded if he needed to 50 yards down the field. But because he holds on to the football and believes he can make every play, that makes him a little bit more turnover prone. So his ceiling is as high as I've ever seen in my estimation. His decision-making is flawless until it isn't. So that's my biggest concern. I think he'll be a great quarterback in the NFL. I just hope that he understands that some plays it's okay to lose on so you can win the ultimate goal of winning the game. All right, what's my last question here? What 2024 non-playoff team can make the playoffs in 25? The New England Patriots, man. And you have to start with Mike Vrabel. Former player. I don't care that he played under Belichick because Mike Vrabel's been a head coach in the NFL and won with the Tennessee Titans. And if you don't know what he's already done, he's already gotten Milton Williams for the Eagles, right? Top-tier defensive lineman. He's already gone out and gotten Harold Landry, who played for him in Tennessee, to play linebacker, and he already went out and got guys like Carlton Davis. And they've drafted well on the defensive side of the football with Christian Gonzalez, who's been hurt a little bit. But defensively, this team will be a top 12, 13 defense. I promise you. Oh, and they've also got Drake May, whom they've drafted. So this team will be sound. This team will not beat themselves. They may not be pretty in a lot of people's eyes, but they will be productive. And I can easily see them being a wild card team in the AFC in 2025. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be my favorite segment of the show, Nonsense Narratives. You got to play them early. No, you don't. Back and we'll move the chains right after this. Hey, welcome back in to Move the Chains. And now it's time for my favorite segment of the show. So let's run it. It's time for the Nonsense Narrative. Draft a quarterback in the first round. You've got to play him game one that season. Why? Do you know most organizations, most Fortune 500 companies, you know what they all have in common? They all have some type of training module, or they have a training standard operating procedure. They have some type of steps to help people become acclimated to their situation. So why, if we think that this is the most important position in sports, in probably the most watched and most popular sporting event and sport in the world, that we shouldn't prepare the most important position to be ready? Now, we've got a graphic up here, and I just wanted to show you a couple of names: Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, and Bo Nix. These are all quarterbacks that have been taken in the first round over the past few years that have all started day one. And one of them had success in their first season, and that was Bo Nix. And by success, it's because his team made the playoffs. But do you understand that that doesn't mean every team has to do that? Because it's not one size fits all. Caleb Williams came into presumably the best situation of any rookie quarterback and got sacked 68 times and didn't play poorly, but they didn't win. Anthony Richardson stayed hurt because he kept getting hit. So I look at a situation when you got Cam Ward coming into the league, and you've got Shedeur Sanders coming to the league, and Jackson Dart coming to the league, and all these other quarterbacks this year, and maybe Arch Manning next year. Just because you draft them in the first round doesn't mean they have to play. I continue to remind people Patrick Mahomes didn't start his first season. He started the final game of the season, and then they transitioned from Alex Smith, and Patrick Mahomes has been who he's been. You don't have to play a quarterback just because you take him early. Make sure that if you take him early and he's your franchise guy, put him in position to be equipped mentally, physically, and emotionally to be the franchise guy, and you'll be competing for at least playoff spots, if not championships, for the next decade. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive. Back with the Lex having to move the chains right after this. Hey, welcome back to Move the Chains. It's time for the final segment of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. Dog, the AFC West is loaded, and I'm not talking about players. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh. 3 of the 4 have won Super Bowls. 1 has won a national championship. 1 has won both. 3 of these 4 are undoubtedly first ballot Hall of Famers in my estimation. And Jim Harbaugh, if he coaches long enough, he will also be a Hall of Famer because of what he did in San Francisco, as well as what he may do with the Chargers. This division has by far the best coaches, and I think because of that will be the most competitive division in the foreseeable future. All right, don't forget you can not only catch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXX Fox 54, but you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's at move_the_change. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. We're all here for it. Your question on social media may be the next one here on Move the Chains. As always, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and always remember, build every day brick by brick. And until next time right here on Move the Chains, God bless.